Good morning, everyone. Welcome to the Tablelands Regional Council Ordinary Meeting for February. Could I remind everyone to turn their devices either off or onto silent, please? Apologies. Any apologies today? Could I ask everyone to stand, please? I'd like to acknowledge the traditional custodians of the land on which we work and live, and pay respects to elders past, present and emerging. Ladies and gentlemen, we'll observe a minute's silence as a mark of respect for the members of our community who have recently passed. We wish their family and friends peace and comfort during this challenging time. Thank you. Item 6, councillors, declaration of any interest by councillors or senior council officers. Councillor Hayden.
I, Councillor Hayden, inform the meeting I have an interest in item 13.2, views request conversion of rolling term lease 0234078 to freehold, lot 43 SP 219915 Mount Garnet. It is not a prescribed conflict of interest, and I do not consider it to be a declarable conflict of interest as defined in the Local Government Act 2009. Out of the abundance of caution, however, I wish to advise my fellow councillors of the interest. My adult son, through his business, has previously and may in future receive contracts for works from the current lessee of the subject land who has applied to the state for the conversion of the land in question, which is the subject of this report. As council is not the ultimate decision maker in this matter, but the state is, I do not believe this is to be a declarable conflict of interest. I believe I will be reasonably perceived to be impartial because I have no detailed knowledge of my adult son's business affairs or control over future work contract. Further, the ultimate decision maker in this matter in relation to the conversion of the land is the state government, not council. Therefore, I wish to remain in the meeting and ask the other councillors to decide if I may participate in the debate and decision making despite my interests.
Thanks, Councillor Hayden. Thank you, councillors. Any views on this one? No one sees a problem with Councillor Hayden. Yeah, no one to challenge that. Yeah. Okay. Very good. Okay. If we could ask, thanks, Councillor Spamos. So councillors, we will get a resolution on that. Councillor Hayden, you can stay here. The resolution is that we resolve that Councillor Hayden doesn't have a declarable conflict in this matter, and that she can stay for the discussion in the vote. So I'm happy to move that. Yeah, so we've got a mover and seconder. Those in favour? Okay, that's 7, thank you. Oh yes, good point. Should be 6.
Oh, okay.
Should be 6, even though Councillor Hayden was in the room. We'll just count it as 6. So any other declarations, councillors? Item 6? No, thank you. We'll go to item 7, confirmation of the ordinary meeting of the 23rd of January. Can we have a move that those minutes be accepted as a true and accurate record? Councillor Lang moving and Councillor Hayden seconding. Those in favour? Carries. That's 7. Thank you. Item 8, business arising, actions out of the minutes of the previous meeting. Yeah, there's an update there on the Water Alliance from the FNQ ROC. That was a question that I took on notice. And that's the information there. Does that answer your question, Councillor Karju?
Yes, thanks, Mayor.
Were there any other
There's a
ones?
second
Jackie?
one,
There's
yeah.
a second one?
Yeah.
The second one there, that one there is related to community project request, rail trail plannings. Councillor Karju?
Yeah, that's been answered and the figure given. Thank you very much to the finance team for that.
Thank you. Any matters from the floor, councillors, regarding the minutes of the last meeting? No, thank you. That brings us to item 9, our deputation. Could I ask Mr. Gary Whedon to please come forward up to the podium to talk to us about the trees on Mountain View Drive.
Good morning, Mayor and Councillors. My name is Gary Whedon and beside me is Rob Picano, and we are representing the many residents of Mountain View Drive area in our quest to have tall and dangerous Kadagi trees removed completely from the council footpath. So picture 1, please. The trees are located around a 90-degree bend on Mountain View Drive. There is no disputing that they are healthy trees, but they are just not appropriate in this situation. As a matter of fact, after being widely planted, because of their pretty green trunks and high rate of growth, Kadagis have now been declared an invasive weed in South Queensland and Northern New South Wales. Kadagi trees are a rainforest hardwood which is endemic to a small area around Kuranda, where the soil is very poor. Plant these trees into the rich volcanic soil of the tablelands and they grow very quickly and taller than the place of origin. Picture 2, please. A huge problem with these trees is the substantial amount of twigs and limbs they drop in the drier months. Picture 3, please. Large limbs have unexpectedly fallen in the past and luckily no one has been hurt yet. Picture 4, please. Pedestrians, cyclists and motorists are at enormous risk, not just from the threat of falling branches, but there are presently many low branches hanging around 2.9 metres above the road. The legal height for trucks in Queensland is 4.3 metres. The low branches are being hit by hire vehicles and have been for a long time. Picture 5, please. This road is also a school bus route. Hire vehicles such as buses and trucks are forced into the wrong lane to avoid low branches, and on a right angled corner, this is a potential calamity. These trees have been measured at a height of 27 metres and are now high enough to reach and damage surrounding houses should they fall. According to a long-time resident, some trees did fall during Cyclone Larry in 2006, but luckily caused no structural damage. However, that was 19 years ago and these trees have certainly grown since then. Picture 6, please. Another main reason why these trees are dangerous in our situation is the risk to our electrical infrastructure. The power system in Mountain View Drive consisted of 22,000 volt lines, which overtop the 240 volt lines that service our properties. The Kadagi trees run alongside and overhang the system. In September 2023, a tree fell over the power lines, which pushed one of the high voltage lines onto one of the 3 phases of the low voltage lines. This caused immediate catastrophic damage to local residents' electrical equipment. Picture 7, please. From records we have gathered, that incident caused over $42,000 worth of damage, for which under legislation Ergon is not responsible. Some residents could not claim insurance as their high excesses precluded them from claiming. Now every time we have a storm or impending cyclone, locals become very worried as to what could happen if a limb or tree fell on the lines again. Picture 8, please. In January this year, after a windstorm, a small branch fell over the line and Ergon had to be alerted to remove it before it contacted one of the 240 volt phases. In last year's Cyclone Jasper event, our electrician rang us and other locals warning us to turn off our power completely just in case one of these trees fell. This meant even though power was available, it was his opinion that we were putting our electrical equipment at risk had we stayed connected. Some residents cannot safely exit their properties due to the limited visibility these trees pose, having been planted on the footpaths and around a 90-degree bend. Picture 9, please. The concrete curbing along the road next to these trees is cracking and breaking from tree roots. The loose chunks of concrete and holes created are becoming a traffic hazard. Sections of this curbing will have to be replaced in the near future. Picture 10, please. In the drier months, Kadagi leaves pile up against neighbouring fences and house gutters and have to be constantly removed. The TRC vacuum truck has to continually sweep the section of the road. This is a never-ending expense to the council and ratepayers, as is trimming these trees to Ergon. The leaves that accumulate in the gutter and on the road can become wet and very slippery for local bike riders. These trees are also prone to a sooty mould which spreads to neighbouring trees, houses, paintwork and roofs, necessitating constant cleaning. This mould can also be dangerous to people's health. I've been told that over many years, a lot of residents have approached council to have these trees removed, to no avail. Except about 5 years ago, council removed a number of this grove further down the street. In February 2024, TRC was contacted about the Kadagi tree problem through our local councillor. The relevant council officer at that time contacted Ergon for their opinion, and it was reported back to us that no action was required as the trees met Ergon's specifications and it would be reviewed in 12 months. However, Ergon only has to maintain a 2.4 metre clearance away from power lines for electrical safety. That is the middle section of the trees. We really wanted this issue of the danger of these trees, that these trees present addressed, not just the power line issue, as the higher limbs and the very low branches are outside Ergon's responsibility. 7 months later, in September 2024, after intervention from Shane Knuth, Ergon trimmed all these trees to within their stipulated 2.4 metres off their lines. As stated, these trees are now 27 metres high, twice as high as the power lines and only 14 metres off the lines at the base. At this point, Ergon have done what they are required to do and is now up to council to deal with the tree problem as these trees are on the council footpath. Picture 11, please. If you read that one there, council's own disaster management plan advises us to be prepared for future disasters. 27 metre high trees overhanging power line infrastructure and residence houses is hardly being prepared. Mayor and councillors, we have taken up a petition of most of the residents in the affected area, and it's almost unanimous that we would like these trees completely removed as soon as feasible as they are continuing to grow. Thank you for your opportunity to present our case.
Thanks very much. Councillors, we do have a business without notice item related to the trees on Mountain View Drive. So I'd like to move a motion that we set aside the standing orders and bring that business without notice motion forward to discuss that now. So I'll get Jackie, we'll just get the words. Thanks, Jackie. That the standing orders be set aside to allow consideration of the business without notice item 15.1 regarding trees in the road reserve in urban areas as the first item of business. So I'll move that, councillors. Is that it, Jackie?
Yep.
Yep. Those in favour?
Second.
We don't need a seconder on a procedural motion. So that's carried. So I think Councillor Cardew had the business without notice motion. Councillor Cardew.
Thank you, Mayor. Thanks, Gary, and thanks to all the residents for showing your support for Gary and coming along and putting your case forward. Thank you very much. Yeah, I would like to move a motion. It's on the board there. My motion reads, undertake that council, that the Chief Executive Officer undertake a review of council's policy position in relation to trees in road reserve in urban areas and its application to Mountain View Drive, with particular focus on any potential safety risks relating to the trees in the reserve, such as impediment to motor vehicle visibility, safety to pedestrians and cyclists and other road reserve users, and the impact of falling limbs onto overhead power lines causing power surges and outages to residents as relevant. 2, provide a report of the review, including cost estimates for removal to council for its consideration at the April 2025 OCM. Thank you.
Yeah, Councillor Cardew, could I just offer a third dot point there, because we need to formally receive the petition.
Oh, yeah.
So that we physically received it, but the words would be, Jackie, to be received, the petition be received and referred to the CEO. Yeah, the petition be received and referred to the CEO as a third document. Then we complied with the requirement.
Yeah, happy with that.
Thank you. Councillors, Councillor Billman.
Yeah, through the chair. Just further to that, and part of Gary's deputation, he talked about vehicles having to traverse on the wrong side of the road. I met with a resident early February. There is a request in to trim those trees as an interim measure for safety improvement. So that's ongoing at the moment as well. So I just want to let council be aware of that request.
Councillor Barty.
Yeah, I'd just like to comment, if we're reviewing our policy position in relation to these trees, can we also look at using the timber that comes from them? Because they are a resource, and in a lot of cases they are a valuable timber. So.
Yeah, so who could respond to that?
So through the chair, thanks for the question. So what we would normally do is in the contract with the provider that removes the trees, basically allow them to keep the trees and if they're suitable for reuse, to reuse them in any way that they like, and that then drives down the cost of the actual removal of the trees. We don't really have a system in place or the resources to take ownership of the trees and then try and find a good use for them ourselves. So it's much better to leave that with the contractors. So that's sort of included in the contractual arrangements.
Is that written in though? Because I'm not sure that's always happening. So I'd like to make sure that that's always.
The trees are theirs. That's always written in the contracts that they can decide what they do with the trees.
I think we also didn't get a seconder on this one, so councillor Kaji's moved, councillor Hayden seconding, just to tick that off, thank you. Councillors? Anyone else like to talk on this one? Those in favour of the business without notice motion? Okay, that's seven, Jackie. Okay, councillors, that brings us to item 10, the mayoral minute. Thank you. Okay, councillors, item 10, it gives me great pleasure, and on behalf of the Tablelands Regional Council, I'd like to welcome our new Chief Executive Officer, Dr. Nicola Stepanov, not just to Council, but to the Tablelands region. Dr. Stepanov has spent many of her formative years living and working in North Queensland, and it is most pleasing that she has decided to return to the far north to lead this organisation. Most recently, Stepanov was GM Planning and Development Services Group at the Toowoomba Regional Council, where she made a significant impact on its internal operations while lifting both its professionalism and currency in the development space. While Tablelands LGA is much smaller than Toowoomba's, the challenges we faced to meet community and business expectations are proportionately equivalent. As a much smaller council, Tablelands has far fewer resources, capital and human, to support and deliver for our community. So while we're smaller, the challenges to lift our level, to lift our game, are arguably larger. It means that we must be smart, continually review and adjust our way of doing business. So whether it's delivering critical services on the ground or how effectively we're engaging with community, business, state and federal governments, it comes down to just how productive those engagements are for the Tablelands community. Dr. Stepanov will bring a new way of doing business, her record in leadership, cultural reform, major projects, advocacy, her specialised knowledge of the law and the Local Government Act are attributes that Tablelands highly values and needs. We sincerely look forward to working with you on the journey ahead. Again, I genuinely welcome our new CEO and look forward to hearing from her shortly when she presents her very first CEO report at her first Ordinary Council meeting for Tablelands. Welcome. Okay, councillors, I also have a couple of mayoral minute motions that I'd like to table. Councillors, the following two motions relate to challenges we have faced in exercising our duty as elected members. The CRM system that relates to customer requests and complaints and issues around our road maintenance and gravel resheet programs have consumed much time and energy for councillors and council officers. With the arrival of the new CEO, it's timely that a comprehensive review of these areas be undertaken with a fresh set of eyes. All councillors and council officers are committed to improving outcomes for community, and if we make improvements to these areas, we'll all rest a little easier, and most importantly, our community will be better served. So councillors, I move the following motions. I'll just read those. That the CEO undertake a comprehensive review of Council's CRM system and processes and bring a report back to Council by the April OCM. Further, should the CEO, as part of the review, need to broaden the scope or investigation, that it be supported. And the second mayoral minute, that the CEO undertake a comprehensive review of Council's road maintenance and gravel resheet programs, systems and processes, and bring a report back to Council by the April OCM. Further, should the CEO, as part of the review, need to broaden the scope or investigation, that it be supported. So I move both those motions, councillors. Is there any discussion on those? Or Councillor Barty?
I'm glad to see these here. These take up the bulk of my time, and you know, I'm really glad this is happening.
Thanks, Councillor Barty. Councillors? Councillor Kaji?
Yeah, I agree. We've been, even in the previous term, both of these issues have been significant issues for us as councillors and also challenging for our staff as well. So welcome it. Long overdue. Thank you.
Final call, councillors. Anyone else wish to talk on this one? Those in favour? Carried. That's 7, Jackie. Thank you. So that brings us to item 11, 11.1, the Chief Executive Officer's report. So I'll hand over to the CEO.
Thank you so much, Mr Mayor, and through the Chair. So I wish to extend a very warm thank you to the staff and councillors throughout the organisation who've made me feel very welcomed and valued. I think this is day 9, although I did do a few things the week prior to my official start. I've been really impressed with the level of spirit and motivation of our people and the strength of character that they're bringing to their roles each day, and I look forward to getting to know each and every member of staff. And to Hilary, I'd like to extend a special thank you for your efforts as Acting Chief Executive. Over the previous months, you've really made the transition very seamless, so thank you. The role of a Chief Executive Officer for local government is a position that is one of privilege and honour to fill. Local governments are extremely complex businesses who face ever-increasing financial challenges and operational challenges. I'm very humbled to be Council's choice of a person with the right skill set, knowledge, experience to lead our organisation as Chief Executive Officer of the Tablelands Regional Council. And I'm also very happy to make this my home now, and it's nice to be back at home in North Queensland, although we describe this as far North Queensland. That's right. So it's a little bit further than normal and a little bit probably east than normal. One of the key things that I'll be looking to into the future is to make sure we have effective and efficient community engagement and input in our decision making. We want to know what the community prioritises, what they think, and make sure their views are represented in decisions of councils, as well as being really key and effective advocates. I do have a very progressive agenda in that regard. To that end, just one initiative I'll be introducing is standing up regular public free forums in coming weeks for our agriculture development business and tourism sectors so that we can better understand how to utilise the strength of our region and also areas where we as a council can improve our services and support to achieve council's mission. Consistent with our corporate plan, in future reports I'll also be reporting against our strategic themes of assets and infrastructure management, community wellbeing, our environment, our economy, and governance and financial sustainability. I'll also provide a monthly update of key projects for councils. If any member of the community would like to jump online, you'll see a copy of my report, and we've already included some very brief summaries of some of our key projects, including the Prize Creek development. And I put it now to councillors if you've got any questions for me.
Probably
Not public questions.
Very good. Thank you very much. We look forward to your contribution, and we also look forward to these reports that will come to council at our monthly meetings as well. That'll be a very good refresh of what council's actually doing, what's happening in our community. So looking forward to that. That brings us to, do we need to adopt that?
Okay.
We do, sorry.
It's a resolve to accept one.
Yes, so can we have a mover to resolve to accept the CEO's report? Councillor Cardew is moving, Councillor Spanos seconding. Those in favour? Carried, thank you. That brings us to 11.2. TW Headley Proprietary Limited, request for minor change of development approval, reconfiguration of a lot 1 into 140 lots, lot 201, SP 342251, Davies Road, Malanda, RAL 25/001. So, and I'll also inform councillors, we've got a slightly different format now. When we have items like this one, especially planning items, we'll have officers come up to the desk and they'll actually present give a summary of what's in the report, and then there'll be an opportunity after that for councillors to ask questions of the officer or officers. And then after that point, then I'll be seeking a mover and seconder for, so that we can proceed with determining the motion. So it's slightly new format, but it's a good one that will help councillors understand exactly what the report's about and what we're deciding on that day. And just before I hand over to the Executive Manager of Planning, I'll also flag another. We've now got a two-step process with our conflicts of interest. So we did a conflict declaration. Councillor Hayden did one a little bit earlier, but also where we have a planning application, especially in the agenda, there will also be a list of interested parties attached to that application. So it's just as another opportunity for councillors to look at something and go, I didn't realise they were interested parties on this particular report. Perhaps I need to consider whether I've got a conflict or not. So it's just another layer of checking, if you like, that the CEO's introduced, and it's a really good one. But without saying anything else, I'll hand over to Sean.
Through the chair, thank you, Mr. Mayor. Councillors, the report before you is a recommendation in relation to a request for a minor change to an existing development approval for a 140 lot subdivision at Davies Road, Malanda. The request relates to removing one specific condition of that approval relating to fencing of existing water bodies, which are old farm dams on the property. The condition requires that lots that adjoin the water body are required to fence it. The request for a minor change lists a number of reasons why that is perceived to be unreasonable. Officer's opinion is that it is reasonable and relevant, which are the considerations when we look at preparing conditions with regards to development. It relates to a performance outcome contained in the scheme, and therefore we believe it is relevant. We acknowledge the reasons put forward for that. For context, this is a matter that has been previously considered by council, and which is a reason why it has been brought back to council today. The original approval was issued early 2021. A negotiated representations were made in relation to that on a number of conditions, including this condition. The resolution of council at the time was to retain this condition. In addition to the reasons explained in the report to retain the condition, it's also the officer's opinion that nothing substantial has changed since that time to warrant the removal of the condition, and therefore the recommendation is that the condition is retained. Yeah. And if there's any questions, I'm happy to answer them.
Councillor Cardew.
Thanks, Mayor. Thanks, Sean. I just want to flag that I have an alternative motion as opposed to the officer's recommendation, because I don't support the officer's recommendation. I think that that this condition in here is not relevant, for the simple reason. I'll just read out a little verse that's in the report, that's in the body of this report. The context is less akin, I don't know what akin is, but to public impoundments like Lake Tinaroo, posing dangers more comparable to those associated with private swimming pools, the fencing of which is mandatory in Queensland. The condition is therefore considered relevant. Well, in my experience as a building certifier and a civil safety inspector in my previous life, this condition in this planning report contradicts that legislation. Under that legislation, dams, watercourses, etc. are exempt from swimming pool fencing. They don't need to comply with swimming pool fencing provisions under those acts. So this condition is in contempt of those previous acts. The condition states that it's a 4-strand plain wire fence. That will not keep a child out of that waterway. It is not a compliant pool safety barrier. So this condition is extremely onerous. It would, in my view, set precedents over future planning applications that come to us where there's a dam or watercourse on the property. So for that reason, I am putting up an alternate motion that condition 22 be removed from this application. I was party to this approval in the previous term when this come to council. However, it was overlooked by myself. I didn't really pick up on this condition in that approval at that time, as there were far pressing matters to be considered as opposed to fencing of these waterways. So it was overlooked by me at that time, otherwise I would have raised it then. So it's now come to light through the applicant, now that the application's progressed further, it's now come to light that this is an onerous and in my view, an unlawful condition on the application. So I want to see it removed.
So Councillor Cardew's proposing an alternative motion. Does anyone have questions for Sean? Councillor.
Yep, Sean, another condition is that that area be revegetated, isn't it? And that's fencing of an area that's being revegetated is a good use of the fence that enables tree kangaroos to pass through, etc.
Through the chair, yes, correct, councillor.
Yeah.
You will see the relevant assessment benchmark speaks to ensuring riparian vegetation survival and continued presence through the development.
Yeah.
as well as public safety,
Public
which
safety
is
as
the reason
well.
for the fencing requirement also.
And also, I just have a question regarding landscaping and site maintenance. It says replacement of tree shrubs and plantings as required. Does that also affect Davies Road?
So not relevant to this
Not relevant to
minor
this.
change request, councillor.
Just
Um,
curious.
I'm happy to take that offline, answer those questions directly.
Okay.
Councillors, any more questions? Okay, councillors, well, first call for if there's any support for the officer's recommendation. We've got an officer's recommendation. Do we have a mover and seconder for the officer's recommendation? Mover? Do we have a seconder? Councillor Bill needs a seconder. Councillor Barty, back to you.
I support the recommendation that it's not just for safety, it's also for that revegetation.
Thank you. Councillor Billney.
Through the chair, look, I completely understand the reason for this condition imposed on safety reasons. Once this 140 lot development is complete, it will introduce a significant safety issue in an urban setting. When we talk about Lake Eacham and those, we're not talking about residential houses. It's been proven, but in this report states that the amount of people that have drowned in dams, etc., which is what we're talking about, is a significant concern. I'm not sure about the efficacy of a 4-strand wire fence being sufficient to achieve that safety, but understanding it's also the protection of that vegetated zone. So maybe as part of this in future, we should be looking at what is the fencing standards that should be achieved, rather than just saying a rural type fence. So, yeah.
Councillors? Councillor Cardew?
Yeah, thanks, Mayor. This condition relates to public safety, nothing else. This is condition 22 of the planning application of the approval, relates to public safety around dams and watercourses on the property. Nothing else, nothing to do with vegetation or anything else. This is a specific condition, and the applicant has asked for this condition to be removed. It's got nothing to do with vegetation management or the like. So, and again, I reiterate that a 4-strand plain wire fence does not constitute a swimming pool barrier or a swimming pool safety barrier. It doesn't comply in any form. So this is, we've got to be specific about what this report is about and what the applicant is asking. Specifically about safety around the watercourse. Nothing else, no vegetation or anything else.
Councillors? Yeah. Would someone else like to speak for the motion? Or against? Okay, councillors, we'll test it. We've got a mover and seconder of the officer's recommendation. Those in favour of the officer's recommendation? That's carried. 5-2, Jackie. Councillor Cardew and Councillor Spanner. Item 11.3, Capital Projects Monthly Report, January 2025. Then I'll hand over to our manager, Christy, to talk to this one. Thank you.
Thank you. Through the chair, the Capital Project Monthly Report for January provides a summary of, it provides a status update on all projects, including project description, project stage, project health, estimated start and finish dates, and percentage complete. In relation to percentage complete, this is a reflection of the overall project life cycle in accordance with project management governance. It's not a percentage complete for the current stage of the projects. I would also like to refer to key project updates provided by the CEO in the monthly report, and also Council's project updates provided on the Council's website for more individual project information, which also includes project photos on the project stages. The recommendation of the report is to receive and note the report at today's ordinary meeting. I'm happy to answer any questions you may have on this report through the chair that councillors may have. Thank you.
Councillors, questions?
Christy, yeah, just specifically about that Atherton sewer upgrade for Cook Street, what's happened with that? Because it was 46 in December and now it's 30 in this last report, so there's been some changes.
Yep, I believe that was a redesign. Sorry, Charles, with that one.
Yeah, so we did the initial design based on gravity running all the way around Nye Street. It just won't work. It won't physically fit in Nye Street for the depths required. So there's a requirement for that section, which is basically from the roundabout around Nye Street to the rear of Mitsubishi Motors to be a pressure system, which will require a pump station. So it's a bit of a resetting of that component. And then from there it can gravity through to the treatment plant.
So will that be a new project or will that still be part of this?
It'll be part
It'll
of
still
this
be part
one.
of this one? Okay, right here. And just the James Street footpath in Malanda, Christy, that's also changed significantly, I understand.
So the project hasn't changed, it's just in relation to where we're pulling the budgeting from, so it's has been reclassified as operational rather than capital.
Okay, so it will be removed from.
That's why
Next one, okay.
it's
All right,
adjusted.
and I am going to ask about the large office printer going from 95% to 98%. Like,
It's just a readjustment to align with a more accurate reporting moving forward, so there's no significant change in that.
Any more questions on this one? Okay, councillors, can we have a mover of the officer's recommendation? So Councillor Barty's moving and Councillor Spanos. Those in favour? Carried, that's 7. June. 11.4, local recovery and resilience grant update, January 2024. And I've got Sarah here to talk to this. Thanks, Sarah.
Through the chair. This report, councillors, relates to the Jasper, Cyclone Jasper Local Recovery and Resilience Grant. So during October to December 2023, as you will remember, our region was impacted by the Northern Queensland bushfires in at Hot Springs and Silver Valley, very closely followed by Tropical Cyclone Jasper. So this report really relates to how we have applied for the funding, how we intend to apply for the next round of funding to equate to the $1 million that we were allocated. Talks about the consultation that we have undertaken, the progress that we've made implementing the grant, and also the projects that we would like to implement up until June 2026. There are a number of projects that are identified for consideration, and I have 4 parts to the officer recommendation to councillors. Thank you.
Thanks, and yeah, if I would have read my report, our senior advisor, emergency management, I didn't want to say the title, so I'm sure I'll get it wrong. But thanks, Sarah. Do we have any questions for Sarah? Councillor Bill.
Through the chair, it's probably more of a comment rather than a question. Sarah, I just want to tip my hat to you and your team, Sarah, for the work that you've done on all these projects. I think there's some significant benefit throughout various levels of the tablelands, and in particular the Ag Disaster Resilience Framework. I think that's an exciting initiative that arguably hasn't been done in Australia. So I really want to congratulate you and your team for thinking through that. And, yeah, well done.
Councillors? Do we have a mover of the officer's recommendation? Councillor Lang is moving and Councillor Bilney seconding. Those in favour? Carried. That's 7, Jack. Item 11.5, LGAQ Civic Leaders Summit, 12 and 13 March 2020. Yeah, I'll hand over to the CEO for this one. Thank you.
Thank you very much, Mr Mayor, and through the Chair. So the LGAQ Civic Leaders Summit, it's a unique event in local government in Australia, and it brings together the Queensland mayors, deputy mayors, councillors, CEOs and senior officers. So this year's theme is direction and leadership. My understanding is it only occurs on an annual basis as well. We've made a recommendation there that the council approve the attendance of the mayor and I at this LGAQ Civic Leaders Summit, which will be held in Brisbane in coming weeks, and I'm happy to take any questions that councillors may have.
No questions? Can we have a mover and seconder, please? Item 11.5. Councillor Spanos moving, Councillor Cardew seconding. Those in favour? Carried. 7. Jack. 11.6, Advisory Committee Minutes, February 2025. Do we have a mover? Councillor Barty's moving. Do we have a seconder? Councillor Bilney. Councillor Barty, you wish to talk to that?
No, nothing to say, I just do, yeah, accept them.
Yeah, thank you. Councillors? Councillor Cardew?
Yeah, thanks, Mayor. I just want to acknowledge the good work that the Natural Asset Management Committee, Advisory Committee do, mostly. However, the endorsement of the recommendation that council requests Department of Transport to upgrade or to look at the traffic conditions on the Land Falls bridge area, that is already underway through the Traffic Advisory Committee. So this would be a double up, and the people that this letter would go to sit on that Traffic Advisory Committee. So I wouldn't be supporting another letter to the TMR on a matter that's already with them.
Councillor Cardew.
Sure. As chair of the Natural Asset Management Advisory Committee, I'd just like to say that we've been trying to get a response from TMR about this since September last year, and there has been nothing happening. I'm happy to hold out until the next TAC meeting to send the letter, if that would make Councillor Cardew happy.
Absolutely, because yeah, I'm happy with that.
Yeah.
Because at the last TAC meeting, it was identified through the General Manager and myself as the Chair that we're a little bit disappointed in the length of time it takes TMR to action their items that are brought up through that committee. So we've got another committee meeting in the middle of March, I think, and this will be a hot topic on that agenda.
I'm just a little bit, I'll come to you, Councillor Bill. I'm just a little bit concerned. All we're doing here is adopting the minutes. Is that right?
No,
Number 6 was endorsed.
Oh, second one's indoors, sorry. Sorry.
We can amend the motion.
Right, okay, sorry. I'll go to Councillor Bill.
Through the Chair, look, I want to echo the sentiments of both councillors. We have been dealing with this since September. I was the originator of the request. I also asked for an on-site inspection with a TMR inspector, if you want to call them that. And even as at today, I sit here, have not heard anything from TMR. So in defence of NAMAC, I would like to think an additional letter of request is another reason why it supports some urgent attention to it.
Thanks, Councillor. Councillors?
you want to say something there, CEO?
Yes, so is it that councillors wish to amend the motion in relation to the second? Or do councillors wish to endorse it so consistent with what's before you? Or would you like to vote on whether it should be amended or not?
I'm going to endorse it as it is.
Councillor Vardy's given,
Yeah,
you've
I'll
given
just-
an undertaking.
Oh, yeah, I'll accept the undertaking of that. Do you want a handshake deal?
A public handshake deal.
I will wait till the time.
I think it makes sense.
Yeah. Yeah.
Okay, those in favour? Carried, thank you. So that brings us to infrastructure and environment. Item 12.1, grants for growth.
Thank you, Mr. Mayor,
Oh,
through the chair.
Thank you.
I'm
Thank
pleased
you.
to
General
talk
Manager, thanks, Mark.
to talk to this report. So as we're all aware, Queensland has been experiencing a shortage of housing, and as part of that, the Liberal National Party, prior to their election, announced that they would create a regional infrastructure guarantee as part of a housing infrastructure fund of about $2 billion. Although this funding hasn't been formally announced past their election, and we don't really know what the criteria are going to be that you would have to apply, comply with to be able to be eligible for funding. We have, in preparation and in anticipation that this would be a competitive process, done some work with council officers to identify from our 10-year capital plan which trunk infrastructure projects could be brought forward that we believe service growth in some of our townships. So the lists of potential projects to be brought forward in this report is not necessarily all encompassing or comprehensive. It's an initial list of potential significant trunk infrastructure projects that council will have to undertake to service growth. In some cases, it's growth for developments that have already been approved, but in some cases, it's also growth for developments that we're expecting to occur in accordance with our planning scheme and pre-lodgement negotiations that have occurred. So there could be other projects to be considered by council once we better understand what the criteria of the funding are going to be. But there's a significant opportunity here for council to potentially attract funding for trunk infrastructure that we will have to provide in the future. And as we all know, infrastructure charges that we can apply to funding to planning applications is not sufficient to fully fund all the trunk infrastructure that we need to deliver to service those developments. I'm happy to take any questions.
Councillor Spanos.
Through the chair, Mark, I appreciate what you're saying. I know that there's going to be a lot of councillors that are going to be putting their hands up for this funding. Is there a dollar amount that we may be able to expect that we may be offered? Because offering that to us doesn't really give us an idea of what might be completed, what we might be able to get. Like I'm really concerned about our sewage treatment work in Atherton.
Yep.
Really concerned. It's a lot of money. Are we looking at that amount of money, or is it going to be?
So through the chair, again, the details of the funding program haven't been announced, but I understand that the government is intending to make $1 billion available for trunk infrastructure to service housing development and acceleration of that. So that's a substantial amount to be shared across 74 Queensland councils. But how much we would be eligible to apply for is at this stage not known. I would suggest, and that's why I put forward the largest infrastructure projects that we're aware of that service the three townships that have got the most growth, is that that it would be in our interest to apply for as much as possible and see how much we will actually be able to attract. And the earlier and the better informed those applications are going to be, the higher the chances that we would be successful. Is my view on that.
Thank you, Councillor. That answer your question, Councillor Spence?
Pretty much. I mean, I've got some concerns about infrastructure in town that don't even include new developments. So I would love for some of those things to be seen to be a part of what you're saying now.
Yes.
And I think we've talked about that, but I just want to make people aware that we have spoken about this and Mark's onto it. Very important that those things that have been lagging for such a long time are looked at in this next round of granting that we may be able to apply for, grant funding that we may be able to apply for.
Thanks, Councillor Spence. I'll just go to the CEO, then Councillor Billing.
Thank you, and through the chair. So we're really not sure what the criteria are. So part of this is being prepared once the criteria are announced. We'll be making sure councillors are informed and assist us to prioritise what infrastructure once we know the priorities, the criteria set by state. If we are successful, it will take a lot of pressure off that capital works budget for us, and that will mean that funding can be deployed to other works, because we will hopefully secure some funding for various projects. So for us, it's really on an informal basis that we have some level of knowledge, but we wanted to make sure that the state and the community are aware that the behind the scenes work has gone on, and as soon as they announce it, we're going to be in that front door with a range of projects.
Thank you. Councillor Billing.
Yeah, through the chair. Look, a couple of things. Firstly, I really want to thank the CEO for taking the proactive approach of getting this list done so that we are ready when and if an announcement is made. My understanding is what we see today in this report is indicative only, needs to be ratified at a later date once a formal announcement is made by the state. I guess the only other thing that I'm not completely understanding of at this point is how that looks like on our 10-year plan. Do we run with like 2, or we just keep with the existing 10-year capital plan until an announcement's made, and then we look at adjusting it on the basis that we might get something? I guess that's all. I'm not quite understanding of what that looks like, that's all.
Yeah,
Thank you. Thank you. Through the chair, I'm happy to respond to that. So I think we need to be able to plan for the best outcome, accept that we might not get the best outcome, but we do hope certainly for some funds, but we would continue our planning for capital works as is. So essentially we'll have an informal planning, informal plan behind the scenes, depending on what the criteria are, but we will still be adopting a capital works program that does not rely on funding which we might not secure. So, and that's something that we will be doing as a council, if that answers the question.
Councillor Belcher.
Yeah, thanks, Mayor. I agree with you. Thank you for both of you for getting the first step foot in the door, so to speak, because as soon as that opportunity arises, we want to be in there on the mark. However, we don't know when if the applications are, well, they haven't even opened yet, so we don't know when they're going to close. Is there any way that, and you've already said basically that this is just a bit of a first take plan, we will have opportunity to look at the projects that are listed to fine tune it. So having said that, do we need recommendations states that I think are we adopting these lists that are in the consistent? Oh, okay. So there's more there. Yeah. Okay, so that's fine. Because what I mean, this is specifically for to develop trunk infrastructure to achieve more housing at the end of the day. So I was just a little bit concerned reading through Mark's list about what was on that list and whether it was aligned with providing more houses, you know. So if we're having an opportunity to revisit that list, I'm happy with that. Yeah, I think it's a good initiative to be on the front foot. And if we just get our list right, because I think there's a couple of little things, and no disrespect to anybody, but there's a couple of little things on here that I think probably aren't relevant to increasing our housing stocks. So if we can just get that list right, be ready, yeah, why not?
I'll just go to the CEO.
Thank you. And if councillors prefer, we can amend the motion. It will be minor, it won't be substantial. So if you're looking at the third paragraph, delegate authority to the Chief Executive Officer to develop and bring back to council a submission for funding applications. So we could, so that adds that extra step where we come back to you once we know what the criteria are and what's achievable. If you, and that's certainly not a substantive change, so it's only a minor amendment.
Bring back to council a submission.
A proposed submission, any proposed. I should just call it bring back to council proposed submissions for funding applications. Just what last state government funding initiatives. Initiative. Right. To develop and bring back to council proposed submissions. Let's read that out again. Council proposed submissions for
Yeah, look, I think it'll serve the purpose.
serve the purpose.
Yeah. Okay, councillors, final call on this one, and we've got an amendment up there in red as well, which wasn't in the copy sent out earlier last week. So, do we have a mover and seconder of the three items of that motion on the board? Councillor Spanos is moving, Councillor Cardew is seconding. Those in favour? That's carried, that's 7. Okay, councillors, item 12.2, C000694, roof renewals, Lavatory Club. Okay. So I'll let the General Manager talk to this one first. Thank you, Mark.
Thanks, Mr. Mayor. Through the Chair, I'm happy to present this report to Council in relation to the roof renewals for the Lapidary Club. As you are aware, in December 2024, Council resolved not to accept tenders for the roof renewals of the Lapidary Club and Lakeside Amenities Block, and instead to have these works undertaken using Council's own resources within the building and construction team. Since then, our staff have assessed what additional skills and competencies are required that we can't deliver with our own internal resources and have to engage externally, and also reassessed the cost of that. So we've actually got quotes for those works that we need to have delivered through external parties to service this project. And as a result, we're recommending to allow us to engage those contractors, and also recommending a amendment of the budget for this project by reallocation from another underspent budget that is part of the approved capital works program. So we can deliver this project within this financial year. And I'm happy to take any questions.
Thanks, Mark. Councillor Hayden.
So I'm not against the recommendation, but I'd like to ask about 5 questions about the finances. So in December 2024, the agenda for the roof replacement stated construction contingency was $12,942. Construction management was the same amount, which adds up to $25,884. So now we go to a new one, and we have contingency of $67,000. We have a project manager of 24,553, which that adds up to that. So, and I would like to know that one, why that has happened. Question 2. So on page 125, additional labour has to be undertaken emergency work on TRC buildings, and we have $34,915 there. Is that the emergency contractors that we may get in if we need them? And another question is, does council need a building certified to do our own buildings? And can I also have explained what corporate overheads are for $8,443? And the internal works are $159,886. Let's say 8 weeks to complete, and if we have 8 workers, that works as approximately costs $2,500 per worker per week. I just want this explained of how it has got so high with a contingency. I mean, this, and like equipment, 9,200, that's fine, that's the higher stuff. I would just like to understand how this has got blown out so far, and a breakdown on all this.
So yeah, we'll go to the general manager,
Okay, so that's all.
and yeah, we'll try and go through them sequentially if we can, Mark. So we might have to go back to you, Councillor Hayden, just to refresh some of them, but I'll go to the general manager.
Thanks, through the chair. Thank you very much for those questions, and I'll try and answer them all as I remember them. So I'll just go through the. So I'm assuming you're referring to table 1 on page. I hope it's the same page as page 132. So the external contractors listed in that table, that is actually the quoted price from the contractors that are actually part of recommendation 1. So we do note in the report that while we're delivering this work with internal resources supplemented by external contractors, our internal resources cannot deliver the other works that they would have normally attended to, which we will then also require external services for, but those costs are not actually included in the cost for this project. There'll be separate costs. We'll have to bear. We just don't know what they are at this point in time. The internal works is the estimate of time for internal staff to deliver this work. That's based on our expectation of the resources required to deliver the works and the time required to deliver the works. The project management cost, I'll have to check if that is substantially different from what we had in our initial report in December. I believe it should be relatively the same, but I'll have to take that on notice. I believe in December it was 18,286, and due to additional work to manage this project in-house, and also the initial works to basically reassess the delivery of the project, and there's some additional project management costs, which is reflected in the current amount in the table. The corporate overheads, basically all capital works that we deliver in council, attract a corporate overheads percentage, and that's to reflect that we support staff that deliver capital works with our own resources. They also utilize functions like IT, finance, human resources, and those rates are not actually in their individual pay rates, so they're the corporate overheads that we apply to those projects to reflect those costs. And that helps to reduce our operational expenditure by accurately reflecting that those costs are for capital works delivery. And the contingency has been increased to reflect the fact that, again, the risk to council delivering a project with one external contractor rather than having our own staff, a smaller team, and a whole host of subcontractors on a project does introduce greater uncertainty and risk to the project, and that is reflected in the contingencies. Obviously, the contingencies will only be applied as they occur, but it's just reflecting the increased risk of the project. I hope that answers all the questions.
Can't stop. So in the contractors, if it's number 1, an electrical contractor disconnect and reconnect for $34,000. I mean, I just cannot fathom that. I'm not building a house.
Through Chair, so the $34,000 is for all the listed contractors from A to H.
So that's for all additional.
In recommendation 1.
If so, all right.
And
so
we
so
have
what's the
quotes.
equipment hire? If we go back, because Scrapby Holdings in recommendation 1.
Sorry.
Oh, anyway, I'd like to see the breakdown of this once finished, because I would think that we have a budget, a bucket of funds for staff training, and wouldn't our builders have the working at heights? Because we put SES through it. I don't know who pays for the SES, but I know they do training at work for heights, and yet we don't even have our employees to improve in their own job. No bucket of funding for training. So I just find that strange. If they're a builder, wouldn't they have to have that certificate?
So this specific training is for using an elevated work platform, which is a high-risk piece of equipment that requires a specific license, and our staff don't. Not all our staff have that ticket.
Okay, I'd like to see the breakdown of this when it's finished. I'd like to see the actual costs of this when it's finished, because I think it's been blown out. So if we don't use the contingency, we can save $67,000. That's what we're saying. Because that's just a contingency if something goes wrong.
There's always a
That's correct.
contingency built into projects. So this one's got a higher contingency.
I know what it is. I've been
because
there,
the-
I went and had a look. I know what it is.
Yeah,
Putting the roof on.
because- Because there's more external contractors and suppliers now involved,
Okay, all right.
contingency is higher, but you only use what you need. Questions, councillors? Final call. Okay, on this one, councillors, I'll move the officer's recommendation. I'd like the opportunity to talk last and continue discussing this one. So I'll move the officer's recommendation. Do we have a seconder? Councillor Bilney, seconder. I'll reserve the right to talk last, councillors. Would anyone like to talk to this one further? Councillor Billy, did you want to say anything, or are you happy for me to talk?
No, look, I think the report spells it out. You know, unfortunately, as the figures show, that it's going to be a more costlier than the original tender that we didn't support in December. So yeah, look, it is what it is. Yeah, nothing more really to add.
Thanks, Councillor Bilney. Councillor Cardew?
Yeah, thanks, Mayor. I'm not going to say anything on this report. I think everybody in this room and the general public knows my feelings on this. I will be, along with Councillor Hayden, be looking at a very, very, very detailed report at the end of this, showing where every single cent has gone. If there's any hint of a cost blowout at all over this, because I think, anyway, I won't say any more. I'll leave that at that. Thank you.
Thanks. Yeah, we can put in that minor amendment. bringing a report back to council.
So we could just add 4, that the Chief Executive Officer bring a comprehensive report, costings, estimates and costings back to council on completion of the project.
Coming to you, Councillor Lang, we'll just get that drafted. Councillor Lang.
I just hope this is a lesson learned for everybody in this room. This could have been handled so much better. I think when we do change motions and officers' recommendations, we really need to think about what we're doing and how we're doing it, and to make sure that that wording is correct so this doesn't happen again. That's all I have to say.
Thanks, Councillor Lang. Any other councillors wish to talk before I talk? Councillor Cardew.
Yeah, thanks, Mayor. This is going, I've been harping on for a very, very long time about trying to get council to change the way we operate, especially being able to have more capacity to do our own work in-house. Now, this is going to test. Well, this may test the processes in which we operate under, whether they're working or they're not, because as a builder, as a licensed builder, the amount of money that's been talked about here for a re-roof and a reclad of that building out there is absolutely extraordinary. And I would suspect that a large portion of these costs will be attributed to administration costs, or costs associated with project management or the like, nothing to do with the actual build itself. So, and this is an area I think that we, as council, we need to really dig down deep into the way we operate and the way we do our own internal works, and the costs associated with that and where those costs are attributed to. And I welcome, I've had a brief discussion with the new CEO over this, and I welcome her thoughts on it. So this will be a bit of a test, because not only for this project, but for future projects that we may, or future endeavours that we build our capacity within this organisation again, to be able to move forward and do works ourselves, simple works like cleaning out drains and stuff without having to go to a contractor every time we want to do something. So anyway, that's all I have to say on the matter. It'll be an interesting exercise at the end of it.
Okay, councillors. Thanks, Councillor Cardew. Look, I think it's really important, councillors, that following on from Councillor Lang's comments there, that we do find some learnings out of this. I hear what Councillor Cardew is saying, but we've got to be absolutely diligent in not becoming operational. The problem that happened in the December meeting is, instead of just approving the upgrade of the lavatory roof and wall cladding, and approving that and assigning a budget to it, we decided we'd tell council how to do it. So we actually became operational, and it's important we understand that we're actually paying more for the delivery of this project now than we would have paid in December if we would have approved that. And we're also getting a lesser product. So the Lavatory Club will miss out on the concrete slab that they were seeking under this revised proposal to council. So we need to be absolutely disciplined and diligent in our focus on having that having that aerial view over things, but not going down and telling the organisation how to do the work that they do. It's really important that we keep above that, because otherwise we're flying blind, saying that we should do it this way and we should do it that way. And as the General Manager made clear, we haven't got the workforce and the skills in the organisation to do a job like this one. We do have tradespeople, but to do a job like this one, we haven't got that. The organisation made a recommendation to us, and we decided we knew how to do the job better. So look, councillors, the key learnings for me, let's not get operational. Now officers present us with a proposal. It's well considered, it's in the best interest of community, and it's also taking into account the capacity of this organisation to do certain things. So that's the first thing, we've got to not be operational. And the final thing is drafting motions on the fly is really dangerous especially on a project like this. Drafting a motion on the fly when we haven't got a good line of sight down into the organisation to know exactly what we can and can't do, and to know what existing workloads are already, because we pull our few tradespeople to this job, well, who's going to do the job that they're supposed to be doing for the next few months? So look, councillors, I think we just need to be disciplined in what the decisions we make, and certainly be respectful of the information that's put before us by officers as well. So without further ado, those in favour?
So we can't have a reply to that. Tell them
I said, Councillor Hayden, I said I would talk last. I did say that a couple of times.
But you're calling us out that we're operational. We never operate. No, we're
Councillor
operational.
Hayden, you're out of order. You're out of order. I did say I would talk last. I did ask a few times. So those in favour of the recommendation? So that's carried. 5-2, Jackie. Councillor Spanos and Councillor Cardew. Okay, councillors, we might just adjourn and take a short break. We'll come back at about 22, so in about 12 minutes, if that's okay. Okay, councillors, we'll reconvene. Thank you. That brings us to Community and Corporate Services, item 13.1, Financial Report, January 2025. I'll hand over to our Manager of Finance. Thanks. Erica.
Thank you, and morning everybody. I'm pleased to present to you the finance report to the end of January for receiving and noting today. Our operating revenue is close to budget expectations with a variance of just 1.3%. We have a bit of an over budget at 4% for our operating expenses. To date, this variance is largely due to works on roads and including some state roads, which is all recoverable, or that component is recoverable, and also some over expenditure on delivery of our essential services, including water and waste. Work is underway to monitor this expenditure and we'll hope to minimise this variance as the year progresses. Our operating position is currently under budget expectations. However, we've got the next round of rate notice, which will appear on the very next report. And as some of you may have seen that in your letterboxes already, and that will significantly improve our position for the year. Overall, our net result to January presents a surplus position of 3.6%. I'd like to draw your attention to our financial position, or otherwise known as our balance sheet. Year to date, we reflect some movements in our capital works completion with the addition of $20 million recognised this year for our asset value, bringing our total value to $770 million, which we are maintaining. Our capital budget has made significant progress. We've got a large budget of $54 million this year. We are running a little behind budget expenditure for year to date by $10 million, but we are working hard now that we're trying to get through wet season to deliver more projects. Our rate debts are being managed with an outstanding balance of 4.49%. Our cash balances are reducing to the end of January. However, like I mentioned earlier, we have issued our most recent rates notice in the February period, so that will significantly increase our funds. Our procurement activities for the month have been slow. It's a January period, it's a holiday period. However, our local and endorsed spend contributes to over 90% of our spend for the month of January. They're the highlights of our finance report for the month, but happy to take any questions.
Councillors? Councillor Spanos?
How are you? Thanks for that report, Erica. Just a couple of questions. We're over budget currently.
Correct.
And do you foresee what our budget may be in June?
So as I mentioned, I'm working with the managers, excuse me, across the board. Hopefully we can work with our variances that we're currently seeing and realign that to our budget expectations. We do have a budgeted deficit operating position. That's what our expectation was. I think we'll be fairly close to that for the year. But it just takes a simple thing like a cyclone to throw things out. But we are working hard together with the entire organisation to achieve that end result.
So do you still see us with the deficit come June?
I do, unfortunately. So we were very conservative with our budget when we set. So as you may recall, our rate increase for the year was around 3.6%. It's the lowest across the region.
Yeah.
So we were conservative in that space to support our community with cost of living pressures and those types of things. But we were also conservative with our expenditure side. So as we're seeing in some of the reports today, our infrastructure costs and construction costs are quite expensive. So we are trying to manage that as best as we can. But similar to other councils who have increased much more than us, we were conservative and we're working hard against that current cost of place.
My other question is just looking at our funding that we're receiving. I noticed that we've missed out on some grants funding of up to $8.6 million. Is that correct?
Missed out on grant funding? Sorry, can I?
What page, Councillor Spanos?
That's on which is that?
There are some timing.
It's sort of a statement of comprehensive income, is that the one you mean?
Correct.
That just means we haven't received it.
We just haven't received
It's
it as yet.
still
Correct, correct.
Okay.
So, sorry, we haven't missed out on anything. So all grant funding have set milestones for us to achieve before the funds are actually received. When it's time for budget, we make estimates throughout the year when we will actually reach those milestones. So at the moment, we have our forecast to receive the revenue is a little out of alignment to when we actually receive it. It's just about us reaching those milestones. And our next budget review will readjust those to align that revenue. So at this stage, the revenue items that are listed in the budget are still expected to be received. It's just the timing.
Okay. And the last thing that I'd like to ask, other income, I just noticed there that it's down 9.4%. What is that other income? Can you elaborate on that for me?
Sorry, I'm drawing a blank and I'll need to take that one on notice.
Okay, all right. I just see that there and that's like, it's just under, oh yeah, anyway, you're looking.
Sorry, I'll take that on notice. I don't want to say the wrong item.
No, it's just something that I'm looking at all the stuff in red and it worries me. And that's why I asked about the grant money. That 8.6 million sounded like a lot of money that we're still to get, of course, that's what you're saying?
Correct, yes.
Okay. And that the only other one that I noticed there that I just wondered why that was down 9.46% other income, and I'm not sure where that's coming from.
I will confirm the transactions
All
that
right,
lead into
okay.
that account.
Yeah, that's all I have to do. Thanks.
Sorry, if I may, so the line with the disaster recovery funding, so 8.4 million is to be received. We've actually received 7.3 million to date in our actuals, so that we have got a significant component of that already.
Councillor Cardew, and then Councillor Borden.
Yeah, thanks, mate. Erica, you said we started off with this budget with a $400,000 deficit, is that right?
519.
519, okay. So I know you don't have a crystal ball, but what sort of deficit are we looking at for the end of June?
So largely, we will work hard to try and achieve what is budgeted for. That is the plan. That's what we will strive to achieve. Things like disasters that come about, requirements for overtime and call-outs and fallen trees and those types of things all have influences which are really hard to predict. We also have a financial assistance grant. Sometimes there are payments made early, and there has been for a number of years prior to this year, which can swing us millions. If we don't receive an extra payment, we receive $5.3 million for the year. But if we receive an extra payment, early payment, which is done so many times in the past, that can be an additional $3 or $4 million, which will well and truly push us into a surplus position for the year end. Unfortunately, we don't find out about that grant. It's a grant that all councils get. It's not based on works delivered. It's a funding that comes to us from the state and the federal governments, and it's to support the operations of councils. So not a delivery item, but that can have a.
But isn't that PAGS grant already built into this budget?
Correct, we do. Their payment schedules have been moving around. So it's just the difference between receiving money on the 30th of June or the 1st of July. That's all the difference is, but that payment can make a significant difference. But we will work hard to achieve the budget that has been outlined.
We'll go to the CEO. Thank you.
Thank you. And it's just at that point so that councillors are aware. I think there was a change in that they ordinarily would pay it before the 30th of June. But then last financial year, for whatever reason, it didn't come through to the first week of July. So for a lot of councils, they had anticipated it would be paid when it usually was, but it was actually paid a week or a few days later. So it has caused issues for a number of councils who ultimately then showed deficits, and then, yeah. So, but it was that particular one that has caught a few councils unaware because of just that few days between
That's right. It's a few
paying
days
one
between,
financial year or the next. So we're certainly alert to that.
Yes.
That issue.
Councillor Billing?
Yeah, through the chair. Erica, you said about the increased money spent on roads.
Mm-hmm.
We asked for an accelerated road maintenance program because we were all getting channeled by our constituents. Have you got a value of what that was, which was outside our normal program?
So to date, most of the variance that you see in the materials and services line is attributed to the additional roads work. There are components, our other largest players are in the water and the waste space. The majority of that 1.3 million that we're seeing as a variance to date has gone towards roads, a combination of roads, so state roads and council roads as well. The state road component is recoverable, like I mentioned, but it just reflects the need to repair and maintain our road network during the wet weather that we've had.
Councillors? Do we have a mover of the officer's recommendation? Councillor Vardy's moving. Councillor Spanos? Anyone like to talk against the officer's recommendation? Those in favour? Carried. Thank you. Right, that brings us to 13.2. Views request conversion of rolling term lease 0/234078 to freehold lot 43 SP 219915 Mount Garnet. And I'll hand over to our governance manager. Coordinator Legal, sorry, Yvette. Coordinator Legal and Governance. Thanks, Yvette.
Through the Chair, I'm pleased to present this report to Council. TRC has received a views request from the State Government in relation to a rolling term lease that's been granted by the State to a third party. The third party is seeking to have the land converted from leasehold land to freehold land. There are a number of road or alignment issues associated with the subject land, and it's the officer's recommendation that TRC advise the State that it has no objections to the proposed conversion of the land on condition that all the road or alignment and access issues are resolved as part of that conversion process. And that would avoid then the need for TRC to purchase freehold land from the new freehold owner to formalise road reserves that have been in use for many, many years. I'm happy to take any questions.
Councillors, questions? Those in favour of the officers, a mover of the officer's recommendation, I should say. Councillor Bilney's moving. Councillor Barty. Anyone like to talk against? Those in favour? Carried, that's 7, Jackie. And moving on to 13.3, views request conversion of grazing, homestead perpetual lease 22/1233 to freehold, lot 2 CPGU 3. And I'll pass over to Yvette again, thank you.
Thank you. Through the chair, I'm pleased to present this report to council as well. TRC has received another views request from the state in relation to a grazing homestead perpetual lease, which has been granted by the state to a third party. The third party is again seeking conversion of this land to freehold land. TRC has no interest in this land and there are no issues associated with the alignment of any road reserve. And it's the officer's recommendation that TRC advise the state that it's got no objections to the proposed conversion. I'm happy to take any questions.
Councillor Cardew.
Yes, thanks, Mayor. Yvette, I think I've mentioned this to you once before, or might have not have been you, but in general, I've no idea where it is. There's just a lot and plan number here. To this day, I don't know where it is.
I apologise for that. The land in question is actually known as Wyoming Station.
What about it?
Wyoming Station, and it's accessible from Wyoming Station Road in the north and also from the unnamed road in the exact part of the north.
At the southern end somewhere. Yeah, southern end of the Shire somewhere. In the Mount Gunner
It's
there.
down Gunnawarra Road. Oh, that's actually on Waroona Road, actually. Yeah.
So I couldn't read the map in the report, and I had no idea where the property was.
It's accessible from Wyoming Station, and that's recorded in the Wyoming Station Road.
Very good. Okay, any more questions for Yvette? Do we have a mover of the officer's recommendation? Councillor Hayden's moving and Councillor Cardew is seconding. Anyone like to talk against? Those in favour? Carried, that's 7, thank you. Okay, that brings us to 13.4, land acquisition, purchase of land for Alcatraz landfill buffer zone. You've got that one still there.
Thank you. Through the chair, I also present this report to council. TRC operates the Inner Hot Springs landfill, which is colloquially named Alcatraz. It was identified as part of a previous request from the state for views in relation to the potential conversion of the land surrounding the landfill site from leasehold to freehold, that an additional buffer zone around the landfill was required. TRC officers and the state have been progressing the transfer of this land required for this additional buffer zone since 2021. And the purpose of this report is to inform the current councillor group about this long-running matter and also to seek endorsement of a new resolution that's consistent with the purchase price already paid to the state for the purchase of the buffer land, and also to seek an update on anticipated project costs to finalise the matter. I'm happy to take any questions.
Questions, councillors?
Yes,
Councillor
thanks,
Cardew?
Mayor. Yeah, how far away do you think we are from finalising a little bit?
I hope that the matter can be finalised either this financial year or early next financial year.
Because like you say, it has been going for a long time.
Unfortunately, the matter has been delayed due to the requirements for surveys, not only by the council required surveys, but also surveys of the land that's actually under conversion to freehold, and those surveys have taken some unprecedented lengths of time.
Final call. Do we have a mover of the officer's recommendation? Councillor Spanos? Councillor Hayden? Anyone like to talk against? Those in favour? carried. Thank you, that's 7. Item 13.5, delegations of statutory powers under Aboriginal Cultural Heritage Act 2003.
Thank you, Mayor. Through the Chair. TRC has statutory obligations under the Aboriginal Cultural Heritage Act. Review of Council's delegations register indicated that Council had not previously delegated powers under Section 23 of the Act, which is in relation to the taking of all reasonable and practicable measures to ensure that our activities don't cause harm or adversely impact Aboriginal cultural heritage. So this includes obligations to actively identify, assess and mitigate any potential risks of damage to cultural heritage sites, practices, traditions and objects that are of significance to Aboriginal communities. And it's the officer's recommendation that this delegation of power be approved by Council.
Questions, councillors? Mr. Finley?
Through the chair, it's a question not directly related to this item, so I do apologise, but it just, we've got a delegations register and this will be updated in it. When a delegation is used by the CEO or transferred, is that noted somewhere? Or is it, there's an actual, when that delegation is utilised, it gets recorded, is that correct?
So under the Local Government Act, you delegate powers to the Chief Executive, and then in the delegations register, the Chief Executive delegates powers under the different acts, planning acts, all sorts of things, literally dozens and dozens of acts to particular areas. So it might be building certifiers is delegated to, and it's often the title of the role. And within the title of that role, when we do the PDs, we're looking for particular registrations or accreditations that they're meant to have. So we'll have a delegations register. It's ordinarily extremely long, and literally every power or regulation, say local government's responsible for, the chief executive, if the chief executive delegates it, it will actually be there. Generally, the chief executive can always bring up the delegation, so they will technically always have the delegation. Councillors can pull in a delegation, so it might be a delegation under the Planning Act. You might pass a resolution to call particular things in, like impact assessable, and that removes the delegation from the offices back up to councillors. But it's a very formal process, and the register, which must be available publicly, actually sets out if a delegation has been delegated down from a chief executive, who that delegation then resides in with. So in some cases, the delegation registers have to be reviewed. It's quite a body of work, because all local governments in general are affected by the same legislation and regulation. So our size doesn't limit that. So we'll end up with a very, very big delegations register. But this is sort of part of that. So where we have found where a delegation hasn't been delegated to the chief executive, some councils pass a broad resolution that all delegations are passed down to a chief executive, except some particular ones. So it really just depends on the council. But this is part of that body of work to go over that delegations register. But it will be a very large public document. It looks a lot like a big Excel spreadsheet.
Councillor Kaji?
Yeah, thanks. And just to answer your specific question about when a delegation is used, is it registered? I would think in most cases not, because when I was building certifying with the council, I delegated authority to approve a building application. Well, I don't update the register wasn't updated every time I exercised my powers.
No.
Yeah.
So it's the delegation of the power. You might need to amend it to say we did a restructure, and titles and roles and PDs changed. But the delegations register sits there. You'll have a delegation policy that supports the delegation. So if I was a general manager or a manager and I was being asked to do something, I would look to the delegations register. Just say I'm looking at terminating someone. I'm not looking at terminating someone, but it's just a question. I would go to the register to see who has authority to do that, and it will have, you know, the particular act, regulation or policy that's relevant as well. And it's things like, so who can make a decision on a planning development application? Chief Executive, Council might have delegated that to the Chief Executive. Chief Executive will look then to delegate that to, say, the Executive Manager, and sort of some beneath them. So really, and so you always have this public document that shows, well, who has the power to make a decision about any particular decision that's relevant to, say, legislation, regulation, or a policy, those types of things.
Thanks for clearing that up. And also, if you look at the delegations, in most instances, the officer has the delegated authority to approve, not to refuse. Any refusals come back to this forum.
Final call for questions. Do we have a mover of the officer's recommendation? Councillor Cardew is moving, and Councillor Vardy. Anyone like to talk against? Those in favour? Carried, thank you. 7, Jackie. Item 13.6, delegation of statutory powers, amendment to powers under Environmental Protection Act 1994.
Thank you. Through the Chair, I also take pleasure in presenting this report to Council. TRC has various statutory powers under the Environmental Protection Act, including regulation of noise. As a result of amendments to this legislation, our delegations under the Act require updating, specifically the power to issue environmental enforcement orders, should they be required under Section 359 of the Act. It's the Officer's recommendation that this delegation of power also be approved by Council.
Councillors, questions? Do we have a mover of the officer's recommendation? Councillor Vardy. And Councillor Hayden, did you put your hand up? Yeah. Councillor Hayden. Anyone like to speak against? Those in favour? Carried, thank you.
Thank you.
Thanks. 7, Jackie, thank you. That brings us to item 15, business without notice. Councillor Spanos?
Yeah, thanks, through the Chair. Group renewals for the Lapidary Club. Coming back to that, I would actually like, is it moving in motion? No, it is.
Propose a new motion.
Propose a new motion that the CEO conduct an urgent investigation into other options to deliver the same desired outcome and bring to Council an information session before the next, or the March OCM. So I'd like to have our CEO investigate that and bring an alternative to the next OCM.
Yeah, you'll need to get a seconder. We have to draft your motion. Then we'll seek a seconder. And then once you've got a seconder, then you can talk to it.
No. Yeah. No, so we're just about to cut and paste. So
okay.
One moment, please. Technical delay.
Councillor Spanos, are you happy with that?
Yes.
Yeah. You need to get a seconder.
Thanks.
Councillor Lang is seconded. You can talk to it now, Councillor Spanos.
Well, coming back to to the Lapidary Club, which has turned out to be a little bit of a mess, to be honest with you. I'd like to see, Kev even mentioned it before, he got a quote that we could get a new shed built for a couple of $100,000. So I'm just wondering if there's a better option for us than repairing an old building, and it's going to cost us $300,000 to do, or whether we just go in and put a new building. I mean, if the cost is going to be about the same, we get a brand new building, why wouldn't we want that? So I just feel that if it's investigated a little more, we might get a better outcome. So, yeah, that's my thoughts on this, because we did make a hash of it to start with our wording, which then instigated another report. I just feel that if that's the case and we're spending tax or ratepayers' money on this, why not give them a new building then rather than repairing an old building? We're talking about that all the time. We're looking at changing some things in our capital, in our properties that we own, and we've got too many old structures. So I just believe that we should be looking at replacing with new. So it just makes sense to me to at least investigate that. And that's where I'm at with that.
Councillor, is there anyone, did you want to talk, Councillor?
I agree with Councillor Spanos on this one. Investigations need to happen to make sure that we are getting value for money if we're spending so much.
Anyone like to talk against this one? Or Councillor Vardy?
My question was just regarding how does this motion sit regarding that we already passed that other motion? So that was what my question was.
I'll pass it to the secretary.
Yeah, I agree with you.
The wording of the other motion does not impose a time limit on me, so we actually have time. If the councillors resolve that they would like this body of work done, we can do it quite quickly, provide a council information session. Because sorry, am I not speaking loudly enough?
No, I was talking to Jackie.
Oh, sorry. I was like, I've got something wrong. No, so because I'm not compelled to complete the earlier resolution in a very limited period of time, I can certainly achieve this as well, so that you're better informed if that's what councillors desire.
Councillor Cardew.
Yeah, a little bit confused on this one. I mean, I understand where Councillor Spanos is coming from there, and we spend the largest substantial amount of money, but we could have probably built a new shed for the same amount, and I've brought that up previous. The structure, I'm putting my builder's hat on again, the structure itself is in very good condition. It's a solid timber frame structure. It was moved from the old CMF complex on McConaughey Street, taken out to the Tolga Showgrounds 20 years ago, whatever it was, and a new slab was put down especially for it. So the structure itself's not bad. It's just that they used the same iron or the cladding on the roof and the walls that's full of holes. So you know, where do we go? What I'm trying to say is, I guess, is that we need to carry out maintenance and repairs on all our buildings. And then when they come to a stage in their life where they need a new roof or they need new cladding or what have you, yes, we probably should look at whether it's worthwhile to either do those repairs or not, or build something new. If we were to build something new for this particular Lapidary Club, then what do we do with the old one? It's going to knock it down. But the building itself's not too bad from a structural point of view. But yeah, I don't know whether we should. I'm happy to apply this to things in general. I don't know whether we should be going back to the Lapidary Club specifically, but I don't know if there's a better way of doing it, or if we can do it for a cheaper amount somehow.
This is what I'm asking, Kev. If we can investigate, if it works out that it is cheaper for us to build a new building, I just feel that that's something we should at least consider. Just jumping in, we've just gone from a resolution that was passed and then adjusted. And so I just feel that we need some more information on this. And I think this could be the start of something that we do throughout the council. I mean, we've got a lot of old buildings there, and I know that we've made some decisions already on some things, but I just believe this is the start of something. We need to start building new for old. We really need to think about, not suggesting that history doesn't play a part, I'm not suggesting that for a minute, but you know, at some stage these buildings are not going to be, you can't keep them any longer. And spending good money after bad on old buildings doesn't make sense to me. I still believe, you know, we still need to think of the future. The Labrador Club's not going to go anywhere. It's going to be there for a long, long time yet. So therefore, is it smarter for us to build a new building? That's all I'm saying. Investigate it, let's have a look.
I'll go to the CEO and then Councillor Bowie and then Councillor Bill.
Oh, thank you very much. And through the chair, the wording of the motion is sufficiently broad that it just doesn't narrow down on only getting a cost for a new building. So I think that if there are a range of options,
yeah,
we will take councillors through a councillor information centre session, and then if there are any decisions to be made following that, or different decisions, different resolutions, we can address that at the March meeting. But this will satisfy any concerns that there may have been alternative options.
Councillor Bowie?
My only question or suggestion was, has anybody spoken to the Labrador Club about what they want, I suppose, in all this? You know, what their preference is?
So through the chair. So obviously conversations have been had with the Labrador Club, also in relation to applying a process where we consider the remaining life and current value of the current building to decide if we renew something, elements of it, or if we decide that it should be disposed of and replaced by something else, is standard practice that we do as part of our decision-making process around that. One thing that may not be clear, one of the reasons why it is expensive to do the re-roofing of the Labrador Club is it's still in use while we do the work. There's equipment, very expensive equipment there, there's materials stored and they still use it, so we do it in little bits and pieces. If we would decide to build something new and to replace the building, we would either have to look at putting it somewhere else while they're still using the old facility and then move, or we would actually have to arrange with them that they stop using it, empty the building, we can demolish it and build a new building as a greenfield site. So all these discussions have obviously not been had, so that would have to be part of the considerations when we investigate this. We would have to go back to them and actually say, well, is there an option that you stop using it for a while while we do this? Are you willing to go somewhere else because there might not be sufficient space or the infrastructure available within their current site on the race course? So all these things will have to be looked into and be part of a report that we bring back. But as a principle, when we look at renewing something, we always look at what is the residual life and what is the residual value of that building. If it doesn't make sense to renew a roof on a building because it doesn't have a residual life anymore and it's structurally unsound, then officially we won't be doing that.
Thank you. I think Councillor Gilney is next.
Through the chair, yeah, I just jotted down a couple of concerns that I had by building a brand new building. Again, we've got more delays being one, and I'm not totally sure or understanding of the current urgency for the re-roof. Mark mentioned about the storage situation whilst it's being rebuilt. I see that as another cost, and probably to a lesser importance is if we're building new for old, it does impact our asset sustainability ratio marginally, but it does have an impact. And I think Councillor Vardy's comment about have we actually spoken to the Labrador Club and what their requirements are, that's probably a crucial part of the investigation if we go down that pathway as well.
I'll go to the CEO, thanks.
Thank you. I'm happy to respond. So I'm presuming that in the original report that was provided to council, it would have included consultation, but all the different options that were considered, and then it ordinarily would have said why a particular recommendation was made. This will provide the opportunity just to go back over that original report, maybe that there's some information, if you've still got questions that would likely have been dealt with in the original report, this will provide the opportunity to re-enliven those, pop those in a report, but provide further guidance as to why particular recommendations were made or costs about different options. So I assume the club was consulted, so they would have formed a view, but there would be some reasons behind that original council officer report to retain the structure and the route. But this is probably a good way for you to, we'll just retraverse over those materials again, but look at whether there are other options to just further explore the topic, because we're not able to answer the questions that you're asking are the very things that we'll look at and would have been looked at originally as well.
Councillor Carter.
Yeah, thanks, Ben. Look, I probably welcome this, and if we're going to look at other options, well, maybe other options is to re-tender it as well, because from memory, the tenders that were received were from non-locals, contractors. I've since this has been since that report back in December, whenever it was, when we decided not to go with the contractors, I've actually, a local builder actually rang me and was asking me questions about, you know, how come it's so much, and you know, why can't we get to tender on it, and all these sorts of things. And it's actually opened up the eyes of some of the local builders and local contractors about, you know, the amount of money that we're paying outside contractors. So he expressed the view that he would be willing to price him to do that. So I think I'll support this, so that if we haven't already gone too far starting it and spent a whole heap of money on it already, if we do need to put it back out to quotes, or look at putting new for old, it might be a good idea to revisit it. Yeah.
Just if I can, through
Councillor Spanners.
Just coming back to it all, the reason that I've brought this up, guys, is because I feel it's way too expensive to repair the shed as it is. If we can come back with a quote where someone comes back and they can do it much cheaper and without the council, the organisation having to do it, it's fine by me. If the structure's sound and we can fix it, and it's well below what we've been offered as a quote, I'd be okay. But if it's going to be up into the 300s or whatever it was, I can't remember the exact amount, but if it's going to be at that point, we can replace the structure with a new shed. So there's a couple of things there, and the fact that the CEO is going to investigate that, I think is perfect. And if we have to put it back out for tender, and maybe someone can do it for cheaper, I don't know, but I just feel, you know, that sort of money deserves a new shed. You know, if you're going to be spending that sort of money, we should have a new shed. We shouldn't have an old shed that's been repaired. It just makes no sense to me.
Yeah, councillors, I'll go to the CEO shortly, but look, we shouldn't, we've renewed a decision we made in December. We've just done that. We shouldn't be going down a rabbit hole now and reviewing the whole thing again, in my view. And furthermore, we shouldn't be, as we prepare our budget, we shouldn't be burdening our CEO and senior officers with this type of an exercise. I mean, every time we ask the CEO to conduct an investigation, there's a whole bunch of work for people. People who are working on budgets, people who've just done a heap of work on getting all the new contractors for the Laboratory Club after they'd already done it earlier or late last year. They've had to do it again in a different model of delivery. So we just want to be careful we don't go down rabbit holes with these things. The officers would have done an assessment originally about the intrinsic value or the the basic value of the structure of the Lapidary Club, and they would have done that back then, and they would have decided, look, it's really worth salvaging and refreshing. So they would have made those decisions then. But we just need to be careful how much of this stuff we keep pushing back to the organisation to do another investigation, another review. That's my view. I think the city
Thank you. So a lot of the information, so the questions that you're raising would have been dealt with in the original review that would have been undertaken by staff. So there would have been particular reasons why recommendations were made. I'm happy to go back and we might do things like quotes. It may well be that we're too far down the track in terms of some work that's done or contracts entered into for different things. But I'll bring that back in a report. It's not going to completely revisit every single thing that could potentially happen. So it will be a series of options, but you'll also have the councillors' officers' recommendations, whether for or against the different options. So you'll probably better understand how council officers made the original recommendation. But it will also just briefly consider what other options there might be. Because I mean, and that's taking into that account those concerns because of the extra costs now as a result of the decision.
All right, councillors, I think we've talked this one a fair bit. We've got a motion on the screen, we've got a mover and a seconder. Those in favour?
Who was against?
Councillor Grimley and myself. Thank you. All right, business without notice. Councillor Cardew.
Yeah, thanks, Mayor. I've got a few items here. I'll just bring them back up again. I just lost it. I've got three items to discuss, and I've got two proposed motions and one question. My first one is Jackie, have you got the first one is the off-leash dog park, and I intend to move a motion to that effect. It's on the board there. So before we discuss it, we'll move it. I'll move that motion that's on the board. I'll read it out for the benefit of those that can't see it. That the CEO provide a report to the March ACM providing details of the investigation into an alternate off-leash dog park in Atherton as per Council's resolution at the August 2024 ACM item 15.1, and point 2, a temporary fence be installed in the existing off-leash dog park, dividing the park into a big dog area and small dog area until this matter is resolved.
We need a seconder. Councillor Lang is seconding. Councillor Cardew.
Yeah, thanks. Okay, so this matter has been going on for nearly, well, probably more than 3 years, but let's just say it's 3 years now. And as you would all know, we have a off-leash dog park in Atherton on Herberton Road, and we had when this was first brought to my attention in the previous term of council, the request from the park and all the dog people that use that park down there requested that a dividing fence be put across the park to separate it into big dog area, small dog area. The reason they wanted that was that a lot of the elderly who visit the park and take their most of the elderly got little dogs, and the elderly would get knocked over by the bigger dogs. So they actually put a petition together, which has been tabled here and is in council's storage somewhere. They had a submission, a petition with quite a lot of numbers, quite a lot of signatories on it, asking for this. So I brought this up, like I said, nearly 3 years ago. And all it is just a chain mesh wire fence 4 foot high across the park, divided into two. And we have been going on with this for now 3 years. It was just about right to go, and I believe the materials have been purchased for this. It was just about right to go until such time as we discovered, or our officers discovered, that the existing dog park area is of significance under the heritage provisions, with attached to the Chinatown. So it got put on hold, and they needed to get permits and all this sort of stuff. So this has been going on and on and on. So, and then at the August meeting last year, a resolution of council was to investigate another option or park elsewhere until the Chinatown, or the dog park at Chinatown there was investigated, or whatever was being put up by the state government. So that was the resolution. We haven't seen anything or heard anything on this since then, and the people who use the existing off-leash dog park are jumping up and down, to say the least, and directing their frustrations to me. So I've put this motion up to try and achieve a result in the very near future, whereas we get a report brought back on those investigations that are supposed to have been carried out at the March ACM, and in the meantime, because this isn't going to be resolved overnight, put up a temporary fence across the park to allow the separation of small dogs, big dogs. Thank you, Mayor.
Councillors? Councillor Barty?
Look, I support number one, but number two, if we've got to purchase material to put in a temporary fence, I don't support that. It's a temporary solution. You also you've got access issues and everything too. I've been to dog parks with big dogs and little dogs. It's not just whacking up a fake fence through the middle.
Councillor Carter?
Yeah, thanks. All those things have been taken into consideration. If you'd like, I could actually show you what the plan was. The access and all that is very simple to achieve. I believe, as I said, I believe the fencing materials have been purchased, with what I've been told by officers. It's just a simple chain mesh wire, 4 foot high fence, and that could easily be achieved.
Look, just on that point, we might go to the General Manager because he has a little bit of information, I think, related to the second dot point, possibly.
Yeah, so, through the chair, thank you for that. So with regards to placing of temporary fence, and I must admit that I'm not 100% sure where it is at the moment, but the latest conversations that I had with that, about that with the manager of the relevant area, as it is a heritage listed site, even for placing posts into the ground, we'd have to do archaeological digging to see if there's anything of significance there. And I'm not aware that any of that has been undertaken. So if we haven't got clearance for those works on that site, we can't undertake those works until we have that clearance. So I'd have to go back into the organisation and understand where we are at with that.
Did someone else have their hand up? Councillor Tudge.
Going on what our GM has just said, I'm happy to amend dot point 2 to have the temporary fencing installed after consultation with the heritage people.
Or go to the CEO.
I was just going to make a suggestion, just so that we can see if there are any impediments to the installing the fence, for us to be able to deliver on that second one. Subject that the CEO investigate whether there are any impediments, legal or otherwise, to installing a temporary fence. Councillors also want to know the costs, or they're just and the costs. And then what would you like me to do with that? Would you like me to bring that back to you?
Well, you're going to bring a report back about the investigation, so yeah, might as well include it in the one.
And include that in that report, because then you're not binding the CEO to put in a temporary fence, especially if there are issues. But I'm going to bring back all the information for you,
yeah,
including costs. Is that all right?
So I think to clean it up a bit more, Jackie, you can delete dot point 2.
I was just going to cut and paste a bit, but
Cut and paste,
it
yeah.
better up to there. Get rid of that.
We'll just tidy this up, Councillor Spanos, then we'll come to you.
Okay.
Right, Councillor Spanos.
Through the chair, just going back to Kylie's suggestion of the option of maybe moving the dog park from where it is to somewhere else, the possibility of maybe for small dogs, a separate location for a small dog park. Maybe that would be something that we could look at.
Look, councillors, I'm just a bit concerned where we're digging in here. Let's just assess this one first, which is the one. This is the one out Chinatown. Let's just do some homework on this one first. That's my view.
Okay.
We're starting to.
I know, but it's more of a discussion.
Is that good? Yeah. So council is happy with those two items. Okay, so we've got a mover and a seconder. Anyone wish to talk against? I'm just going to change a word.
It's always hard to type.
It really is. Everyone's watching. Okay, so I'll just read those out. That the CEO provide a report to the March ACM providing details of the investigation into an alternate off-leash dog park in Atherton as per Council's resolution at the August 2024 OCM item 15.1, and that the CEO investigate if there are any impediments to installing a temporary fence in the existing off-leash dog park, dividing the park into big dog area and small dog area, and cost, and include this information in the above report to council. Is everyone happy with that? Okay, those in, anyone like to talk against? Those in favour? Carried. That's 7, Jackie.
Thanks, Mayor. My second item relates to the condition of the Atherton Town Centre and entry approaches to the Atherton Town Centre. I'll read out my motion that the CEO undertake a review of the amenity and aesthetics of the Atherton Town Centre and the approaches to the Atherton Town Centre with the view of providing options to improve the amenities and aesthetics of the area. 2, provide a report of the review for Council's consideration at the March 2025 OCM.
Okay, the CEO has expressed reservations about the timeline. She will have trouble to meet that timeline.
All right, we'll go to April. Only reason The only reason I want to try and keep it reasonably short is that if we're going to do something, we're going to start budget deliberations in end of March, and we need something positive to take to the budget, I would believe, to put in for next year's budget consideration.
Yeah.
So my concern, so at the moment the team, we're building the budget, we're doing the capital works plan, so it's all hands on deck for that. We wouldn't have the capacity to undertake a review in that time frame. Possibly would be the June OCM, but it would likely be that we would have to, if we want something done urgently for this, it would likely be that I would have to engage an external contractor to undertake the review for us. And it's really around the time frame and the scope of the review and how quickly it's brought back to council. Alternatively, you could set something for, say, June. It could always be considered in a budget review for next financial year.
Just I'll go to Councillor Billney next.
Yeah, through the chair. Look, I'm just thinking about.
And we haven't got a second here, have we?
Good point, Councillor Cardew. So Councillor Cardew is proposing this motion.
My comments might influence what that motion might be.
Right.
Councillor Cardew may be willing to amend it. The reason I'm saying it is we're centring on Atherton. It may be the opportunity to actually look at all town entry within the Shire as a bigger, broader project. I think that would be smarter to actually do that.
Yeah,
in my view.
And look, we haven't agreed on a motion, but we need to have a motion and a seconder. So
I'll second it.
you happy to second what's up there?
I'm happy to second what's there.
Yeah. Look, the other consideration here, councillors, is we've all expressed for some time the view that our parks and gardens are basically under-resourced. We've been talking about that for a long time, and in the back of my mind, I think we've been thinking, well, we've got to have an increase in our parks and gardens budget well beyond CPI. If we want our entrances to the towns to look better and towns generally to look better, we've got to put more resources in because they just work so hard, that team. So I think they're well and truly under-resourced. So my personal view, I understand Councillor Cardew's sensitivity about the entrances to towns, but perhaps what we need to do first is just give them a real increase in the budget, in the upcoming budget. Whether we need to do this, I think the CEO wants to.
Thank you, Mr. Mayor, and through the chair. So my understanding is there's a service level review occurring at the moment. Is that correct, Tilly? Has it started?
So there isn't, sorry.
Well, there hasn't been
There isn't one, but the starting point to address the frustrations of councillors, I feel like the starting point needs to be agreeing what the level of service we're actually seeking to provide is, and then making sure that we are resourcing that level of service, because at the moment, if we're just unsatisfied with the outcome, but we haven't actually specified what that level of service should be, I think that would be the effective way to do this. We can just say, let's establish what this council's desired level of service is for towns, and then make sure that we resource to that level of service.
So we've got a number of options here. So it could either be very specific to Atherton, and certainly as someone who drove into town, I did notice it. It could be that it's specific to amenity and aesthetics in town centres. We could do a review. We still need a service level review as well, which will include these things. So you've got a number of options open to you as councillors. What I would suggest though is that a specific date be removed. That wouldn't be achievable. And so it really depends on the scope of what you'd like done.
Councillor Cartron.
Yeah, thanks, Mayor. I'm happy to look at the timeline, but I am focusing specifically on Atherton. I'm not interested at this point in time about the other towns. A lot of the other towns have voluntary community groups, garden groups, who do a magnificent job in keeping our towns in those other areas beautiful. Atherton doesn't have that. So Atherton, the Atherton Town Centre and the approaches into Atherton, disgraceful. And no reflection on staff, I agree 100%, they are under-resourced. But the reason I'm bringing this up today is that we need to start thinking about it, because we have budget deliberations starting at the end of March. And I really don't, and I could be tend to be corrected here, but I'm not looking for a capital input. It's all about our operational processes and being operational with our parks and garden staff to be able to boost that area to achieve these outcomes. So I just want to leave the Atherton Town Centre as a focus on this one here, but I'm happy to draw out the timeline to.
I would put June at the earliest.
June. There you go. But it's going to, the whole point about this exercise today is to bring to the attention of everybody that we need to do something with the appearance of the Atherton Town Centre. It's our major town in our TRC footprint, and it doesn't look very pretty at all. And to be honest with you, I get complaints every single week about the Atherton Town Centre. And I'm sure I'm not the only one.
Sorry. So we've got two items there. Who was the seconder? Councillor Spanish, sorry. So we've got a mover and a seconder of what's up on the screen. Anyone like to talk against that? Councillor Dillon.
Yeah, through the chair. Again, I'd just like to reiterate, we should be looking at all town centres, and I understand Atherton is the primary focus, but I think we should be forgetting other towns as well. I support it, but I'd like to see other town centres and entries also included. Some of those towns are going to have less to do, but they shouldn't be left out either.
Councillor Barty.
It's more of a comment about the other towns having like volunteer groups that do it. This sort of feels like it's maybe not supporting them either. How come Atherton doesn't have a volunteer group? Has it ever had? I think I'd like that to be addressed as well, because we've got great groups in other towns that are doing wonderful things. Yeah, that's sort of a question for me. I'm happy to support this, but
And I'm happy through the chair to speak to that. So this could be part of a body of work, so it may well be that councillors decide that into the future, amenity aesthetics of all of our towns. So it could be that this is that stage one looking at one particular town, but that's not to say we can't do that for all towns, and take into consideration just the level of input from those wonderful volunteers out there. And we can answer that question for you. So that's one way to consider it. I don't think I could commission an external consultant to actually go to every single town and bring a report back by June. So that's probably that time frame. So if you consider this as sort of one stage of a broader body of work, and it will be very important because it will inform the future planning scheme, because part of what we see as we enter a town will cement in our mind whether we think it's a beautiful town or not. So I think that could easily be some intrinsic materials for the new planning scheme as well. So it would certainly form that broader piece of work.
Councillor Spanos.
I just have a comment, if that's okay. I've been getting quite a bit of pushback from people in the community, and I understand what Kev's saying. I absolutely get it. Kylie would be copying it as well, and the town is looking a little bit sad. I would like to say this though, we have had a lot of wet weather for a long, long time. You know, making these gardens look pretty isn't an easy task. We have a lot of gardens in not in just our area, but in the Shire in total. So the budget, and I appreciate the fact that the Mayor has said, and previous to this, he's actually said we're going to look at increasing our parks and gardens budget. I think that's where it needs to come from. We need more people on the ground. Now, as far as community sentiment, I believe and I agree with what David has said and Marie has said. They've got community groups in their little towns, their villages. Atherton is a commercial hub of the TRC. It's never going to be a pretty little village again. It's grown. It's just grown immeasurably. And you've got to remember the main street is the main road. It is the main road. Getting in there and getting things done isn't as easy as some places. So those things we're restricted with. However, our parks and gardens people, I cannot say enough for. Those guys try very, very hard with the time that they have when it's sunny to do the work they do. So I appreciate everything they do, and I'm sure we all do. I'm not suggesting nobody does. However, I would like to see also a community group come up and say to me, as a Division 5 councillor, that, hey, I'd love to start a community group where we can get in and pull some weeds. So I think a lot of it stops with the community. The buck shouldn't just stop with TRC. If the community are interested in how our main streets and our verges look, they can help. And there are some people out there doing that. So it's not just on us. I think it's the community to jump up and say, hey, I'd like to do a little bit as well. And then I'm happy for them to reach out. I really am. But what you said previously, Rod, about adding to the budget for our parks and gardens, I think that's very important. We are understaffed there, and I agree. And Kev said it himself. We need to add to that. And that's with no disrespect to the staff that we have. Weather's been poor, and we are understaffed. So I just wanted to make a comment there, guys. I'll just go to the CEO.
Thank you very much, Mr. Mayor, and through the chair. And just by way of offering further information about this, it may well be that as part of this review, if we continue to be dependent on grass to beautify areas, which is an enormous maintenance undertaking in an area where it rains, so it's very, very difficult to get out there. As part of this review, consistent with what other councils are doing, they're moving away from things that are really high maintenance. Australian natives, small clumping grasses, those types of things that require a lot less maintenance. They're not only require a lot less maintenance from councils, but they also require a lot less maintenance from volunteers, and they are just as beautiful. So it may well be, as part of this review, consistent with what other councils are doing for their entrance statements. They've recognised that some of the usual ways of doing these things is not consistent with sustainable practices for a council. So certainly as part of this one, we can look at that. And it would include things like how high the signs are placed. Currently the sign is, I think, hidden by grass. So it's sort of the two, but I'm happy for us to have a look at that as part of, and when we can look at that broader piece of work for the other towns as well.
Councillor Carter, I'm just conscious of the time. I think we might have discussed it a fair bit, this one. We could perhaps go to the
I'll just make one more comment.
Councillor Carter.
The reason I brought this up is I don't want to make this bigger than Ben Hur and cost this council a lot of money on investigations and whatnot. All I'm saying is that we need extra staff on the ground, because what's happening in the town centre and the approaches is nothing. I'm not asking for anything new. It's where you've got grass this high on our paved concrete footpaths all over the main street. You could just about put a mower or a slasher on our paved footpaths at the moment to cut the grass. Things like just spraying a little bit around on these and killing those things and making it look, that's the starting point. That's what I'm trying to achieve. Where you've got grass growing like this and all over our traffic islands, and it's not going to be a huge impost to tidy those sorts of things up. We do need to do the review, but let's just try and keep it in context a little bit, what we're trying to achieve, what I'm trying to achieve anyway.
So we've got a mover and a seconder for this one. So Councillor Cardew and Councillor Spanos. Those in favour? Carried. That's 7, thank you.
My final, I lost it again. My final item is just a question, and I note that the vet's in the room and probably relates to her. And you may not be able to answer this, Yvette, and I'm well and truly appreciative that you are so understaffed that it's not funny and there's no area to look at. I've just got one little question. You can take it on notice if you like. I just want to provide an update on the status of the lease or license agreement with the Herberton District Junior Engineering Club.
Thank you very much for your question. It is one that I'll have to take on notice for you.
Okay, thank you.
Thanks. Councillor Cudgey, was that your last?
That was all, thank you.
Business without notice, councillors? No? Okay, we move on from item 15 to item 16, confidential items. Thank you. Okay, councillors, that brings us to item 16.1, rate debt recovery, sale of land. Can I have a mover of the officer's recommendation? Councillor Land is moving and Councillor Hayden is seconding. Those in favour? Carried at 7. Thank you. Okay, councillors, our next meeting is the 27th of March. We'll close the meeting. Thank you very much.